Yeah, you too, Andrew. Thanks so much, Cheryl. Great to see you again. So happy that we could have this conversation live.
Oh, it's so great to talk with you again, James, and excited to be here with all of you for Brand Innovators. It's great.
Awesome. So let's dig right in. So, well, first of all, I just wanted to, it's still Black History Month. So congrats on your work with Jennifer Hudson and supporting Black females and their businesses. So congrats on that, because I know that's something that's new and recent that you're doing. And the feedback has been incredible across the market.
Thank
Um,
you so much. It's a good
yeah,
example of another, we're focused on impact and how do we drive inclusion and impact. So it's a good lead in for the discussion today. Thanks.
yeah, 100%. So listen, I know that Mastercard is the world's preeminent brand on financial inclusion. Can you take us through a 30,000-foot view of what that means and what it means to you as an executive and a leader, what it means to your organization, and then what does it mean for the communities that you serve?
Sure. So, first of all, inclusion is just central to who we are as a company, and it's a core pillar of what we do. So, and it's critical. We talk about it here. It's decency, the decency quotient, and we talk about it as employees here at Mastercard. What is the decency quotient, and making sure we have decency and respect for all human beings, for all people, and then and that makes it a wonderful place to work, of course, and it ensures that we have diverse perspectives at the table as a business. But then when we think about the opportunity to enable so many people around the world who aren't currently, in the financial system, and they don't have access to payment cards or banking systems, it is part of our job to make sure that we enable more people into the system. So we have a goal of putting 1 billion people into the system, where we already surpassed the half a billion mark, and
Wow.
counting. And that's getting new products, new solutions, new ways to get people access, things that we may all take for granted, getting access to, online shopping, getting an ID card, by the
Mhm.
way, having an ID that also gives you a form of payment. So access to all the things, all the safety, all the capabilities that I think probably we take for granted every day.
Yeah, that's a serious key performance indicator, 1 billion. Yeah, it's amazing. So you mentioned your culture and your people. So first of all, as you know, I'm a huge fan.
Mhm.
Um, can you walk me through the inclusiveness in your people, in your culture, and the work, and how it connects into the world? Because as you know, with Gen Z, they're holding all of us accountable. If you're talking about it in your campaigns and you're saying you're doing it, well, then let me look at your executive team. Let me look, do you have any women? Do you have any people of color? Do you have any community members that are gay, lesbian, trans, et cetera, that are on your board or on your teams? So how have you been able to rally your internal culture to align with that external work?
I mean, you know, when I talk about decency at our core, which is a pillar of just who we are, it is something. It empowers all of us. So first of all, yes, Mastercard has been very vocal about diversity and inclusion overall, as our from an employee standpoint. But then I go into how we're empowered to have real impact, across the board as employees. And so if I bring that into what we do in marketing, it's first about really understanding the needs of people and different groups and around the world, and then figuring out what the solutions are. Now, what you said is we have a responsibility. We do. We have a responsibility not just to say, as marketers, not just to message,
Mm-hmm.
but to do something and take action. And I tell you what we did I'm going to start out by saying something about messaging, but it created a behavior change for us
Yeah.
in our marketing organization. And a few years ago, really slight, we've always had our priceless campaign, and it's way more than advertising. It's always been about enabling priceless experiences. we changed the tagline to start something priceless.
Yeah.
Okay, now that's the saying something part, but what it did was force us to figure out what actions we were going to be taking. So the spirit behind that was, we can no longer, none of us should just be saying, because it's hollow, right? You have to have the ability to do something and have impact. Now I'm lucky to work for a company where it is core. So there's impact happening all around the world. But then, being a marketer, the ability to uncover new insights and learnings and then take that and put that into action. And I know we'll talk about a few examples.
Oh, yeah.
But we're empowered to do that because it is part of the culture and who we are.
That's amazing. So last question on this kind of 30,000 feet broad strokes. What would you say to other brands right now that are saying, no, we don't want to take a position. That's not our brand. We're general market only. We're not going to speak to specific audiences, and we're not going to address the LGBTQ plus community. What would your advice be to a CMO who honestly just doesn't want to pull that trigger?
Brands have to have a point of view. And it's just not so interesting to not have a point of view. Like, as a brand, you have to have a personality, and playing it safe, as one might say, and not taking a point of view and a stand. Again, you can't just do it if you're a marketer, if you're not surrounded by a company and a CEO and a culture where it's just there, and so you don't have to worry. But to me, the upside benefit of being brave, of taking a point of view, about taking a stand, it creates, you become a forward-thinking brand that's relevant in today's culture. Sitting back and not taking a point of view, you might just be left on the sidelines. We have to be strong.
Yeah, thank you. And what a year 2020 presented, where marketers and CEOs alike and consumers, we had literally, mask, no mask. We all had to make a choice of where we stood. Do Black Lives Matter or do they not? Do Black trans lives matter or do they not? So then that takes us one level deeper, Cheryl. In terms of financial inclusion for the LGBTQ plus community, what does that mean to you, and what does that mean to Mastercard?
So, we've long been a supporter of the LGBT community, and we participated in Pride for many years. We had a campaign called Acceptance Matters, where we were looking to educate and enlighten and, share how important acceptance matters is for this community. So we had this long-standing focus, but when you dig deep and you talk about how can you make an impact, you really have to do something more, right? So we said, how do we move beyond this? The campaign was great, and people engaged in it, and it took a point of view. So this part was good, but we wanted to have bigger impact. And so for us, what does that mean? You have to talk with the communities that and understand the communities that you're trying to serve. Being inclusive is understanding if there are any pain points, if there are any weaknesses in what we're offering, if there's any biases in what we're doing. And, I just think the one of the greatest examples, and, when we went on this journey, how are we going to start something priceless and have real impact? And you start getting these insights and talking to the community, lo and behold, a huge pain point existed. And it was the name on our card for the transgender community. So, this is where I would say you have to be, it can't just, there's no one single group. Everybody is an individual in that group, and there's different dynamics. And so the fact that we were able to talk to the community and learn that this pain point existed, and it was a major pain point. People feared for their safety. 1/3 of people, we found further data and looked at studies, 1/3 of the transgender community basically said when they had to present an ID that didn't represent what they looked like, that they reported some sort of discrimination or not being able to receive their services or whatever it might be. So people feared for their safety. They were embarrassed. And, you know, it's certainly not a source of pride because that name doesn't exist anymore. And we're forcing it on the community. So we knew we had to do something. So that's what it means to us. It means taking action.
Yeah, you know, I'm definitely going to ask you to unpack True Name and Acceptance Street a little bit more. But
Yeah.
you know, the fascinating thing that's coming up for me as you're talking about that is, I think 2020 was a year that people learned words like how to be an ally or allyship, right?
Right.
So when you look at allyship as a term, you know, so funny. I have friends from these communities that have just been a part of my life forever. And in 2020, people found themselves like, oh, well, let me find a Black friend or let me find a gay friend so that I can understand, as the world was trying to heal, or at least some of us were trying to learn and grow. So allyship from such a prominent and premier brand, you know, you've been with Mastercard for 21 years, right?
Yes.
So how has that allyship journey with the communities been over time? And the reason why that I bring it up is that, listen, I've done my homework. I'm a fan of your brand. I'm a fan of you. To your point, this is not a new journey for Mastercard. Whereas, as we know, during the 50th anniversary of Stonewall, banks out the wazoo for the first time ever changed their logos. And the backlash from that was really immense. It's like, well, where, if you're with us now, then where were you? Where have you been?
Right.
So how has that allyship journey been something that you've been able to lead for such a long time?
Yeah, I think this is really important because I think everybody means well in what they're trying to do and they want to come out and say we support, but how you support is really scrutinized. And so just showing up for the first time, they have to be really thoughtful. And so it has been a journey. And I know I shared with you one example of this, but you know, so acceptance matters and getting conversation, hashtag acceptance matters, has been a longstanding effort that we've had. You know, on that journey, we looked at things that were going on in, you know, in culture, in society, what was changing. And, you know, as one example, you know, and I would tell you that we learned that it's not just about pride, of course, it's about being there year round, not just during one time a year. But as an example, during Pride a few years ago, when you'll remember, and many of you will remember, like we were starting to see states put laws out, right? North Carolina, right? Where you could only, right, the bathroom, you could only use the bathroom based upon what gender you were born into, right? Yeah. And, you know, what we did is during that Pride year, we put up bathrooms around the event, and we created the bathroom for all humans. And it opened, the door opened if you had a pulse, meaning it's okay, right? Whatever gender you are, you know, it's about being human. You should be able to use whatever bathroom makes sense for you. And, you know, so the point is we've consistently taken a stand. When you back up who we are, first of all, we're about experiences matter more than things. What is priceless? Yeah. I mean, what is, you know, we are one of the most human-centric brands, and we've always tried to sort of come out with that point of view. Even the, you know, over 23 years ago, we came out with Priceless. And the point was, well, every other brand was focusing on consumption in the financial services business. We said there are some things money can't buy. For everything else, Mastercard. And so we've always taken the side of people. And part of that brand is being inclusive. Everybody deserves to have the respect, the decency, and you know, priceless and love in their lives, right? At the end of the day. And so, you know, that journey is long, is there, but it is hard to just show up for the first time. And so I feel for brands that are trying to just get in now. At the same time, my advice to them would be take a step back and think of the actions you could take that come along with that, that just the logo, it's not enough. It's certainly not enough.
You know what, Cheryl, I feel you speaking with empathy, right? That maybe some of these folks have the right intentions, but they're not just received the right way. You spoke about being brave and having courage, which you and your brand absolutely do. Are there any missteps along the way or hard lessons that you learned? Because I do think it's tough to always do the right thing for every single stakeholder community. So from a place of you being a mentor to brands that are really trying to get in this space and have authentic conversations, you know, are there any stories you're comfortable with of like, hey, we got this one wrong, or we tried to do this the right way, it didn't come out right, but we learned from it and we moved forward? Because honestly, as a Black person, I can tell you, I would rather a brand or a politician just be honest with me and say, listen, I'm not educated, I don't know, but I'm going to work on it. And then from that, you know, I'll open my arms and hug you because you're just being real about it.
I guess what I could say is we haven't had any, you know, giant missteps, but what I could say is we could have. And so, but what we do is, you know, we work closely with GLAAD, by the way. We work closely with the community and associations. We work closely with New York City and the Human Rights Commission when we launched Acceptance Street, which I know we'll talk about.
Yeah.
And so the point is, you have to surround yourself with people. You have to show the work, you know, the work that we just launched with Jennifer Hudson. We did a huge amount of testing. We spent time with our lead BRG, you know, internally. We spent time with our diversity office. I can't tell you how many people we spent time talking because, you know, you have to understand how people will receive the work we're doing. And it's not straightforward. It's not straightforward. And it's, so I would say, I honestly, I don't have a case to tell you, but I will tell you, there could have been if we didn't take these types of steps.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and I think, look, when you're pushing the boundaries, like, you know, kind of the tree analogy, you walk out on the skinny branches, it takes courage, but sometimes it snaps, right?
You have to have the stomach for this, right? The point is, you know, you will get the bad tweet, or you will get somebody who's just doesn't see the same point of view that you have. And you have to be ready for that. You have to, as a company, have the stomach for that. And, you know, and this is our reality. You know, you've got to go in and say, you've got to know and prepare for that. And you look to mitigate anything you can by being smart, by talking to other people, groups, communities. But at the same time, you know, I tell you, we talk about it all the time that, you know, otherwise you're just vanilla as a brand. You're just kind of,
you're not a brand innovator.
You're not a brand innovator. You're not a brand, you know, we want to be a brand that's, you know, ahead of trend and, you know, cutting edge and defining trend. And you can't be that by sitting on the sidelines and not having a point of view.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you for that. So two examples of this phenomenal work that you've done. True Name. And I think what's so cool, so I was a fan, you know, back when I was the vice president at Giant Spoon, like I told you, when I built Giant Spoon's first diversity initiative, I used True Name as one of the marquee example of how a brand can take action. So again, congrats on that. And one of the cool things, it's on your website, right? It's not like it's hidden anywhere. Like it's on your website. So can you give us a little bit of the thinking behind the design process? Because I was such a fan when I learned how you went about it. Because inclusive, to me, as brands create inclusive products and services, like there's a difference between a general market product or service that's just created usually for a straight white male versus what you've done, which is create a specific solution for the specific trans audience.
Yeah, and I thought this was interesting. So first of all, and then we'll show you a video on it in just a second, but what's interesting is one, getting the insights and starting to understand that this is, an issue and a pain point. One, we said, oh my gosh, we have to solve this. But I think what's interesting is behind it, we said, we have to solve this for our cards, and then we have to think about customer service overall, when we're working with our issuers. Now, remember, Mastercard is not a B2C company.
Right.
We don't issue those cards directly to consumers. So what we are is, we have to have products and technology and franchise rules and all kinds of things to shape products that ultimately go to our issuers, banks and issuers, and then ultimately to consumers. So we have a big influencer job to do as well, to influence our customers. So, it's just a lesson learned. First of all, there wasn't a technology change that had to really happen on our side. It's more process. So over the years, we've been sort of leading up to being able to do this. We've told merchants they're not required to take a signature at the point of sale. You no longer have to do that. And and the cards don't have to have a signature on the back mag stripe. The name isn't a secure element. That being said, a bank will need a legal name in order to do credit checks and things like that, processes. So there is a need for the name, but it doesn't have to present itself. So a simple process change, like taking preferred name during an acquisition, can enable a bank to do all the things they need to do to ensure that everybody's safety and security is there, but then make sure you're treated the way you want to be treated and the way you want to be. Imagine to get a card and the name on it doesn't represent who you are. I just think it's just not even a source of pride for somebody. Never mind this, on top of that, this god-awful safety issue and concern, right? So, interestingly enough, internally, it was hard at first because everybody resonated with it and loved it, but it didn't fit into a box. Is it a credit product? Is it a debit product? It doesn't fit into like the way the organization is designed. That being said, all it takes is passionate, empowered people that know inclusion matters to the company to drive it forward. And this is what we did. So marketing actually drove this. We grabbed a group of people from product and legal and franchise. And then we spent time with our customers, our banks, to talk to them about it. And they were so excited about it. And essentially we launched the campaign and said coming soon, because we knew it was going to take issuers a little bit. But the point is, we wanted to get it out there. We actually created an influencer campaign. And that enabled us to quickly get banks like BMO Harris out there. And now Citibank launched with it as well, and others are coming. So it's really exciting.
Yeah, that's amazing. I know when we were getting to know each other in the past couple of weeks, you told me some secrets that we won't say here today, but let's just say Cheryl pushed it through and got it done. Yeah.
And a small group of people, by the way. There was like three of us, and that, had the heart to say, like, we're never going to let this go. We got to get this out there. Yeah. And we were able to do it. And then we found customers that had the same passion and they were with us, which was just a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I don't know if we want to show the commercial because then the story comes into place. If you take an action, you could story tell beautifully. And I think what we did was found a way to, with our agency, McCann, to really tell the story.
Yeah. So while the video is being queued up, I actually want to get that quote, because you said if you take an action, the storytelling is.
The storytelling, then it's fine. So when I say we can't be saying, we've got to be doing. The storytelling here is, you've got to be able to capture it in a way that gives other people an understanding of what the other people are going through. Put yourself in their shoes. The transgender community, I work with people, they could be your friends, neighbors, etc. It's you have to show the empathy, I think, is the key point, and show the real people.
I just love that action first. I love that.
Yeah, action first. Then the messaging you could do.
Yeah.
For transgender people, a secure payment doesn't mean protecting yourself from someone buying sneakers with your card. No, if you're transgender, a secure payment means paying for something without being judged, questioned, disrespected, humiliated, harassed, even assaulted, simply because the name on your card doesn't match how you identify. This is about more than just keeping a card safe. It's about keeping us safe. True Name by Mastercard, the first card that allows you to display your chosen name because that's who you truly are.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. You know, do you know how many people would see this at our company and cry?
Yeah.
You know, just because it's enlightening.
Yeah. You know,
you learn something.
You know, so the city of Los Angeles actually now has a hate crime czar that sits in the mayor's office. And you know, as you see society continue to wake up, is you know, the empowerment that you're giving the trans community here could be the difference between, right, a store clerk, as we saw here in this spot, acting in a discriminatory way, and then that same person walking outside and being in fear of their life.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, it's, to say it's powerful is an understatement.
I tell you, with BMO Harris, when they rolled this out, and a branch manager wrote us after that, they had a trans couple come into the branch and talk about this issue, and that they really, you know, and the branch manager said to us, they've never felt more human, because they would have never known what to do or how to respond, nor would they had a proper offering for them. But I love that too. I never felt more human, which is just, you know, it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. So then that leads us into being accepted, right? So when you did Acceptance Street, obviously that went really viral. It was on Good Morning America. It was everywhere. I mean, the cool thing about the term financial inclusion, or just inclusion as a word, everybody wants to feel accepted. Anyone could live on Acceptance Street in America or in your global territory. So what was the thinking behind Acceptance Street?
So, and keep in mind, we were announcing True Name, and then we did Acceptance Street at the same time. It was the 50th anniversary of Stonewall.
Yeah.
And right there on the corner of Gay and Christopher Street, right down the street from the Stonewall Inn, is right the Gay street sign. And lots of people go there for Instagram pictures and things of that sort. And it's a little bit of a landmark. So what we did is, again, when you talk to the community and you get under the feelings people have, is we said it can't just be Gay Street. It has to have every designation on that street sign of the LGBTQIA+ community. And that's what we did. We added every designation to the street sign, and the bottom one was our hashtag Acceptance Matters. And, you know, and I tell you, you know, Instagram lit up. Everyone from, even Kamala Harris took a picture, you know, and others. And so it just lit up on Instagram. And the point I would just tell you is, we all talk about sort of the holy grail of earning media. When you do something really meaningful between True Name and Acceptance Street, we had a 19-to-1 earn to paid ratio. People talked about this for us more than we talked about it. And so we launched it in a way that we knew would be an Instagrammable moment. Again, messaging, but you know, messaging that had action and a point of view, and something really important to say. But we had True Name at the same time, which was our action. So these two work beautifully together.
Yeah. And so speaking of the allyship and the partners that you talked about earlier from GLAAD and others, you worked with the city of New York on that, right?
Absolutely. So no, it's really cool. We got a permit for 2 weeks to put that sign up, working with New York City, and it stayed up through October. So it went up in June, stayed up through October. And then, the hope, actually, we're working with the city. The hope is it just comes back. It was a landmark in Google Maps, the sign, and it just got so much attention. The city, loved it and kept it up there. So it was great.
Yeah. Well, it's just such again, the nexus between marketing, community building, and society. Just changing a street name, like you said, to go all the way to October and have people come back time and time again. To me, it's just a sign that our communities are just thirsty for authenticity and engagement. So how do you see, so obviously we're in 2021, we're still in a global pandemic.
Yep.
Governments are working through that. None of that has changed the disproportionate impact on the LGBTQ plus community. As Mastercard continues to lead this space, how are you seeing that you'll continue to lead the charge? And obviously, I'm not asking for things that you haven't launched to the market yet, but as you continue to lead that conversation through this disproportionate impact that COVID has happened, what do you think the next steps are?
Yeah, I think, this is where everything happening, you have this, it's really like this intersectionality of impacts that's happening. And so I think more and more we have to connect the dots on these things, where communities are disproportionately impacted. And so, a few things, one, we're going to continue to roll out TrueName, right? We're just getting started on this one, and it's so exciting. Europe announced it as well. And so we're looking to roll this out at a global level. And, the key is, yes, Mastercard started this. Others should come along now. It's an industry rallying cry to show that we need change. So, I expect that to continue. And I think a continued focus, again, not just at one time a year is important. And we've learned that on our journey as well. We got more positive response. We did a whole effort on our communications around TrueName and those included panels and discussions and education, not just the ad you saw during, Trans Awareness month in November. And that, it was really positive. So again, I'll just reinforce to marketers to, not just show up one time a year, but think about the impacts, the intersectionality, where we could have, expanded impact across the multiple communities during.
Amazing. Well, thank you for being a leader. I do want to do a time check, and then we can check for questions as well. Cheryl, is there anything else that you wanted to cover?
I would just say the other thing is, it doesn't, you have to look at this stuff holistically too. So again, some of this empowerment that you heard today starts with the company. So we even have, sort of trans awareness manager, understanding. So, and tips and information and education, so that if you have an employee that's actually going through, change, we actually are given advice and information, and we'll hold these panels internally to share with our employees to create awareness and understanding. So, the point is, it starts with the benefits for your employees, how your employees are treated with respect and decency, how you educate others to treat every employee with respect and decency, and then down to your benefits and your offerings. And so the point is, it has to happen authentically.
Yeah.
It doesn't just happen because of one person. It happens because I said it before. It was so easy in some ways to push for
the decency quotient, right?
Because of the decency quotient and who we are as a company and what we do.
Yeah. I love that. So there's a question that popped up in the chat, and we'll go through some of the comments as well. So obviously you've taken a stand in society, and you've been proactive with changing the narrative and shifting the narrative about the trans communities specifically. But for the political arena, which in 2020 was really tough for all of us, and I think no matter what side or sides that people stood on, it just wasn't fun and it wasn't pretty, right? For anyone. How have you, or how would you, how have you thought about taking political stances specifically? Because I feel like what you've done with True Name and Acceptance Streets, that's a stake in the ground in society. That's not political. But now that we have elected officials who are taking very hard stands, whether it be guns or other things like that, how have you thought about that as kind of a part one? And then part two, what would you recommend for other marketers to navigate those very tricky waters?
Yeah, these are tricky waters. We did take a stand, and we redid our and relooked at our, you know, particularly our PAC donation policies and things of that sort. And, you know, so we did relook at all of these things. You know, there has to be, it's an interesting and tough conversation internally, right? To figure out how you take the stance. Like, do we, you know, in order to conduct business, don't we have to do, we have to do business in certain ways and with many people? The reality is there's certain times where you have to factor in what's legal and what's not, and guide by that. And then there's certain times where you have to take a stand, and we did that with our PAC donation policy as well. So it's, you know, again, you know, I think the most important thing is that the discussions happen, and they happen openly at a company, and you continue to have that dialogue and discussion and make decisions that way. But, you know, there's guides that you have to have that protect everybody, one, from an individual's feelings or an individual's, you know, beliefs to factor in big decisions. That can't be the case either. So that's a dangerous territory to be on too. So, you know, we work together and have dialogue around, you know, these things all the time. But yes, and we take action when it makes sense, when it absolutely makes sense, like we did with our PAC donations.
Awesome. A couple more questions that popped up. Do you think the rise of a younger and bigger consumer bloc has influenced corporation stances and activism within the LGBTQ plus community?
You know, well, I guess so in some ways. You think about, you know, there's been a longstanding trend in general that, if I'm understanding the question right, that brands need to, you know, this it used to be like brand reputation and corporate reputation was managed here, and then, you know, there's the brand people that do this brand marketing stuff over here. And, you know, at the end of the day, it becomes inextricably linked when consumers are voting based upon their values. And when I say voting, whether that's buying, deciding they're going to use a brand or not. And so therefore, yeah, I mean, the important points, you know, this is something. You can't be authentic as a brand unless you're taking action. So I think we just have seen it overturned. The consumer has said to us, just saying something, just you out there saying isn't enough. What are you doing? And so again, you have to be careful, but not too scared, because there's no matter what you do, somebody's not going to like it, right? There's going to be somebody that doesn't like it. So again, it goes back to who you are, who you stand for as a company and as a brand, and let that be your guide. But yeah, I do think that the consumers have spoken, right? And no more, you know, talk. You have to take action.
Well, and Cheryl, something that I think you brought up there that's great. And by the way, you had another quote I'm going to put on my Cheryl sweatshirt about brands can't be authentic unless you're taking action. Like, hello, but that's real. So I now myself as a global chief diversity expert, what I try to tell people all the time is that there is diversity within diversity. And I'm aware that I just said it twice, right? And what we mean by that is you can't just lump BIPOC together. That's like a couple billion people. And you can't just lump LGBTQ plus in the lump, because
Yeah.
the lesbian community is its own, and diversity within the lesbian community.
Yeah.
Gay community is its own, and diverse within that community as well. So I think that's important when we talk about audience and market segmentation within marketing, because this is a marketing conversation at the end of the day. That's so important to recognize that. And I think a lot of stakeholders that want to make that first move that we talked about, their first move is just to assume that one message will be an umbrella for the whole thing. But it just doesn't work that way, right?
It's the most interesting innovation comes from, I guess, a bit of that micro segmentation in some ways, because that's where you find the differences. The big groups, you go into the big groups and you say, I'm going to put 5,000 affluent people and do a survey and understand what all affluent people are like. And underneath there's multiple groups that have differences. And so I know as marketers, we tend to look for commonalities and then we go. But I think in this case, what you're hearing with True Name and exactly what you're saying is you also have to dig deep, because there might be a hidden pain point or opportunity that we've never uncovered. And so, diversity within diversity. I love it.
Question from Andrew. What initial metrics have you seen from True Name as far as customer signups?
So, I could tell you most recently, Citi talked publicly about within a really short time, as soon as they launched True Name, they got immediately like 3,300 requests right out of the gates. And they've had, tons of people go to their site with interest. But so, to create demand immediately like this, where, 3,300 people within the moment of your announcement start coming for cards and to be part of getting a card from Citi, this is wonderful, right? So I would say, but think back. So for me, the metric on brand will be there. The big metric will be when we get the fact that we got these banks to move and actually take action and join us, and that there's others on the way. The more I could get this to scale, then we're like, and I talked about we're rolling this out globally, then I know, but we won't rest until we have full scale.
You know what, Cheryl, kind of a sidebar that's very interesting that's coming up for me. Harvard did, so when I teach my company and others about unconscious bias training, I always bring up Joe versus Jose, which was a Harvard study that's done. Now I'm going to hack the numbers, but 1,000 resumes with the name Jose versus 1,000 resumes with the name Joe. For this vice president role, Joe had like a 90% open rate, whereas Jose had like an 11% open rate. So the discrimination within hiring processes of names on resumes is immense. So I'm thinking about that as an employer and the innovation that you've made. I wonder if True Name, if I'm Black and my name may be a certain way that people don't understand, or my parents are from West Africa, and I may feel more comfortable using Bob because, right. I mean, that's also.
No, those are real. Yeah, those are real. And we've got use cases where True Name, where there's parts of the world where one type of name signifies status versus another. And so I think there's a lot of application here. So not just what we do for card, but in general, when we think about anyone who's customer service oriented, and you think about how you're treating your customers, and I think there's a number of different use cases here. I think it's just remembering that, again, go back to that decency, draw on the decency. Everybody deserves respect and decency, and you want people to be proud to hold your products or your services, and how can you be if it doesn't represent who you are?
Yeah. And Cheryl, you addressed this earlier, but you said you're not going to please all people. But one person wanted to know, from your purview, where did you get the most pushback from a digital campaign or a statement?
From like a social media standpoint, a consumer coming in and
Yeah, either a campaign or a tweet, or someone saw a campaign and then tweeted something.
yeah, I mean, you know, it's that's typical, by the way. And so it sort of becomes, you become numb to it, but there are less enlightened people or people that don't have the same views. And, you know, and they may say, we're going to drop your card because you're doing this. Well, you know, you have to be ready to say, we're fine with that. And the truth is, that's the reality. This is the right thing to do. We stand for inclusion. And you know, this is the way of the world, and it's the way it should be. Everybody, again, deserves respect and decency, and that's the stand we take. So if somebody's going to say that, that's the reality. We may lose a card holder, by the way. But you know, I guess I probably shouldn't say this, but is that the kind of card holder we really want? Then it's okay, is what I'm saying. It's okay.
Thank you. Cheryl, last question with the few minutes that we have left. And I think this might be one of the most meaningful ones that we spent time today. And thank you so much. This has been fun, as we both knew that it would be. For a lesbian, gay, bi, trans, queer person that is in an early stage in their career, how do they become you one day?
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I mean, there should be nothing stopping anyone, right? And so I could tell you the same thing I would say to them as I would do if I was just having a career discussion is, you know, you kind of have to take risks, thoughtful risks in your career too, and do different things. I did a few different things at Mastercard, beyond marketing, and you know, get out of your comfort zone. And even in any job you're doing, you have to say, how do I stand out, or how do I make this company stand out? How do I help us, you know, really do things that are meaningful? And you know, if you do that, then you know, I think the possibilities are endless, frankly. But you have to, you know, I think it's an amazing thing. Nobody should feel that they have to be the same as everybody else, but the work that you do needs to be different and stand out. And if you do that, and if you bring your whole self to work and you're proud doing it, then likely, you know, please, you don't have to just stop at doing what I'm doing. You could be a CEO, you could be whatever you want.
Yeah, there you go. Well, Cheryl, thank you for living the decency quotient. I really appreciate you, my friend. Andrew, it's been amazing. Do you want to take it from here?
Of course. Well, first of all, James, I want to thank you for moderating and bringing so much fantastic insight to this conversation, because this is, I was just telling my Brand Innovators team, this is one of my favorite, one of the best conversations I've ever heard about just D&I marketing.
Oh, yay.
So I think you both brought your lived and learned expertise to that. And by the way, I should point out the fact that we're all talking about this particular topic today is extremely timely, because the Equality Act is currently waiting for votes from the House of Representatives, and if passed would bring monumental protections to our community. So I'm particularly excited about that. You know, it's crazy to think that it's still legal in 27 states.